In this slide, again, I'll just go over some terms that I think you might would or need to know. And so one of them, again, I mentioned in one of the other slides, is inclusion. And so this is where we bring services to the classroom and include special education students or students with disabilities in the general education classroom with their peers. It used to be, that we did content mastery, we'd pull kids out for content mastery, or we might call it resource in the past, but inclusion is where we include students with disabilities in the general education classroom and provide some services there. Stay put is something where if the ARD committee disagrees on the placement or the accommodations or anything in the IEP, that students with disabilities can stay put in their current environment with their current accommodations until the ARD committee can resolve and come to consensus. Modifications is different than accommodations. Sometimes people interchange these terms, but they're not interchangeable. So modification means that you're actually modifying the curriculum for the student. And so we don't see this with a lot of SLD students or speech impairment students. So modifying means that instead of meeting the 7th grade TEKS, we're modifying the curriculum and saying, here's the curriculum that needs to be met. So modification is used on a very specific basis. So some students have said, I don't see special education TEKS anywhere on the TEA website. Well, that's because special education students many times or oftentimes are still required to meet the same TEKS as anybody else in that grade level. If they require modifications, then they would modify the curriculum and decide what kind of goals or TEKS the student needs to meet. Twice exceptional means that students are both gifted and also a student with disability. And so we do have several students or many students who are twice exceptional. They have maybe dyslexia but are also gifted. So that's not uncommon for students to be twice exceptional. And then here's our other word, accommodations. So accommodations, you're still meeting the same course objectives. So the idea is that the student still has to meet the same learning objectives and the same TEKS and the standards as any other child in that grade, but you're going to accommodate the material to make sure that it's fair and equitable for that student with a disability. So for example, because my son has delayed processing, he might have some of the questions reduced in half because his processing time is a little bit slower. He still has to meet the same objective, so we're not going to take out questions that he still needs to master, but if there's repetition in the questions or maybe eliminating an answer choice, that's how we accommodate how we're teaching that curriculum so that it's fair and equitable for our students. Universal design is a curriculum style that's used oftentimes for students with disabilities.